Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles. Welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFC 295, we are back for a pay-per-view in MSG. We are in New York City for what is an absolutely star-studded 13-fight card. There are 13 fights with a lot of really important things to break down. One where I don't want to waste too much time. Before we do so quickly, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. Last week was a good one. DraftKings reads were on point. Almost was there if it wasn't for that fight cancellation. Bets were there as well. I don't know. It was a good one. It's in the past, and I'm ready to go in this week here. And I do think we have a very fun and good opportunity to go out here and make some money this week. Like I said, 13 fights, all lined very, very closely, and a lot of really fun matchups to go in to dive into. As always, going to break down everything from a DraftKings and a betting perspective, all 13 fights. If you want any more premium content, make sure to check out DailyFanMMA, where we'll be posting written breakdowns, DFS podcasts, projections, ownership there as well. Working with Brett Apley over there. And then keeping the ritual, cool bet, best bets video will be out later this week as well. But without further ado, let's do this. We get the fight night started with the 11-3 Dennis Buzukja versus the 19-7 Jamal Emmers. Jamal Emmers, first fight of the night, being the largest favorite in the card. And you know what? Emmers and large favorite don't typically go together. He's actually only 1-4 as a UFC favorite, and that kind of highlights what he is. He's a guy with a ton of potential, someone who the UFC rates very highly. Very good frame for the division, good technical striking, good wrestling. He has all the tools, but it seems to be his own mental lapses that kind of really set him back. Not wrestling against Giga, wrestling against Sabatini, really not putting it all together. He's had issues, and then add in the fact that he went in there, fought really close to Jenkins, although it looked like he had a physicality edge. There have been flaws in Emmers' games that have costed him, and all that is being said and all that is going around him. He is still a large favorite in this spot, highlighting that although he does make those mistakes, his skill set is too good to overlook. He faces Dennis Buzukja, making his second walk to the octagon after being pretty much dismantled last time against Sean Woodson. On short notice, we'll give him that here, but what we do have is the more experienced guy in Emmers, the guy who is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist, the guy who is going to have a height and reach advantage, be this heavy favorite. And when it comes to picking a winner in this matchup, all the signs point towards Emmers. I think he's far more technical in this spot to be able to outpoint Buzukja, and although Buzukja is very, very tough and will be a dog for your money, lacks the defensive responsibility, lacks the minute-winning ability that Emmers has, and really just is a guy with cardio, heart, and some good solid power. Now, the full camp is behind him. I do expect him to look better than that Woodson fight, and due to the lapses of judgment that Emmers does show, this isn't really a fight I want to get too invested in. The question then becomes, is this a complete fade for the first fight of the night, or is there some value on DraftKings? Because moneyline-wise, I do think this line is wide. I don't really want to trust Emmers at this price tag. And that exact same thing can be said for DraftKings. 9.4K, the most expensive fighter on the slate, pending the Rebecki addition here. I can't get to him that often. And that's actually really funny to say because last time, Sean Woodson was optimal against Buzukja last time at 9.6. So again, maybe the opponent makes it here. All that being said, Jamal Emmers should go out there and he should win this fight with more volume, better wrestling, better overall skill set. But last time he was overall better than a fighter. He went out there and scored 72 in a pretty dominant performance against Aspinall. In a fight that a lot of people thought he won against Jenkins, he would have only put up 79 points anyways. The guy isn't the best DraftKings scorer at 9.4K. He isn't someone getting too often. Maybe you can go out there and get to Buzukja at 6.8 because of the mental lapses that Emmers makes. You can fade him here. Maybe get a good low underdog, being the cheap underdog of the slate, looking for that lapse of judgment from Emmers. But I do think that Emmers does get this done a lot of the time. Hard to trust him considering his history, but he does have the better overall skill set to get this done. Despite this, no value on DraftKings, no value in the money line. It seems like one where even the over is juiced here. So this is going to be a pass fight for me to get the night started. Should be a fun one nonetheless, and I do think Buzukja competes, although I do think the skill set is superior for Emmers. Next up, we have the 8-1 Joshua Van versus the 9-1 Kevin Borjas, making his UFC debut here after a very big upset win on Dana White Contender Series, and let's really get that out of the way. Both these guys were expected to fight on Dana White Contender Series. Van got the call up to face Zalgas, and Borjas was left without an opponent. He got one and was a very, very big underdog. Borjas defied expectations. He went out there, he won that fight convincingly, and now gets a shot here. And I think that really unfolding of events really played out to how the UFC sees these two guys. Van is only 22 years old, but out of the two of them slated to fight each other on Dana White Contender Series, he was the one called up against Zalgas. He was the one who UFC valued to go out here, and he was the one that was chosen to get that contract without even fighting on that show. Yes, Borjas looked great last time out, but he was still someone who was expected to go out there and lose. And him winning was more so, wow, he did it, rather than, okay, this guy's legit, right? There's still a lot of questions to be asked about Borjas, and I think that although he is a dog, very good volume, very technical striking, I don't like his defense all too often. We've seen him rocked in the regional scene, and his ground game is still a very, very big question mark. Joshua Van is not perfect by any means. 22 years old, still a long way to go for improving, but he was able to beat a UFC vet there in Zalgas. Again, not something I'm putting too much stock into, considering this is a completely different matchup, but he has a ton of power, very explosive. I think he wins the optics in that regard. He has also shown a good ability to play it out on the ground, contend in the optics and minute winning ability, and this is a matchup where I do think he should be the A side. He is favored in this matchup, I tend to agree, and I do think he has the overall skill set to win this matchup, whether it be the more powerful shots to take advantage of the questionable striking defense of Borjas, or the flashier, better minute winning opportunities to win this in the scorecards. Either way, a 22-year-old at minus 225 against someone who has shown such good heart and resiliency as Borjas has doesn't make me too excited. I think there are better ways to make money on this card. And this will yet again maybe be another pass from the betting front on that side of things. DraftKings-wise, though, this is a bit interesting. Maybe betting-wise, I'd look towards the Van finish only at minus 180, but DraftKings, I think that is the side I'm going to go here. 9.2K, again, very hard to get to, but I think he's going to make for a pretty good contrarian play. Very low down in this card, very low profile fight. I do think a lot of that ownership is going to go towards the BSDs, the Derns, the Rebeckis when he played. And at 9.2K, he may go a bit overlooked. Yes, he only scored 80 last time against August, but Borjas is going to push a very heavy pace, can be hit, and was finished in his one loss. And I do think that Van has the power, the output, and the ability to win this fight, putting up a decent score in the process. I think he's able to go out there and land a powerful shot, putting that 125 power on display, something that you don't see too often at this weight class, and potentially get a finish of Borjas here, who does get hit so often. With that being said, would I be surprised if Borjas was able to show heart and resiliency one more time and beat this 22-year-old kid here? Not really. So a 7.K, the volume and the pace and heart and resiliency of Borjas makes him a bit intriguing as an underdog this week, but the pick is going to be Van. I do think he gets it done. Very, very fun matchup, let me say that for sure, but one where I will be siding with Joshua Van here. Next up, the 19-9 Kang versus the 20-6 John Castaneda. Another very, very fun matchup. We have Kang on a bit of a roll recently. 5-1 in his last 6. So some good wins in the process. Back-to-back underdog wins against Baccaridana and Quinones last time out, including that first-round submission win over Quinones as an underdog. Picked him last time. Do I want to pick him as a dog a third time? That's the real question. He's getting Sexy Mexi in front of him. Mr. Perfect, Sexy Mexi. Clash of great nicknames. Shout out Monk. But another very, very fun matchup. Castaneda shows that he has a pretty good overall skill set. Very well-rounded, good volume, good pace, good pressure, good ability to mix it up as well. He's landed 3 takedowns in both of his last 2 bouts. And he's shown there's a good ability to go out there and push a heavy pace, have a well-rounded skill set, and be a fun fighter to watch. However, the question remains, is that pressure-heavy game plan good enough to compete with Mr. Perfect? Because although he is getting older, he is someone who also has a very good well-rounded skill set. Someone who came into the UFC as a grappler, as a wrestler, but has shown very, very good technical striking. Beating Baccaridana on the feed, really beating up Quinones before submitting him there as well. He has some overall good striking. It's just, is the technicality enough to suppress the pressure and pace that Castaneda is going to bring in front of him? And I think it might be. We've seen Castaneda go out there, be out volume. And although he does go bring a heavy pace and throw decent volume himself, someone who's able to match that can wear on him. Santos was able to get him out of there. We saw Wood go out there and out volume as well in his UFC debut, and I do think that Kang has better overall technical ability to win minutes from that regard. The question then remains, is this older fighter and Kang able to compete for all 15 minutes with the pace Castaneda brings? And that's why it's such a really, really close matchup here. One where I'm struggling to pick a side. I think I might actually go here with the underdog here in Kang. He is someone who I think will have the better grappling shall go to that regard as well, and has the ability to be the more technical striker of the two on the feet. Yes, the pressure and volume and age discrepancy for Castaneda kind of worries me a bit, but I don't have to pay juice here on Kang, and actually I think he could be another viable underdog for his 3rd straight underdog win. I like his technicality, I like his wrestling, I like his ability to make reads as the fight goes on, and I do think he's a very live underdog to continue this card. At 7.4K, for that reason, he is a very, very live underdog. Scored 116 last time in the first round finish. Don't necessarily think that's his path to victory here in that regard as well, but has put up a 100-point decision before, has gone out there and got 3rd round submission wins. He has shown a very, very good ability to have good upside at 7.4K, is a very, very live underdog. Flip side of things, Castaneda itself is someone who does bring a heavy pace, has shown the ability to bring a fun pace, and I do think that if Kang's not able to sustain it, 8.8K, he could be a very, very contrarian play. But contrarian aside, if I have to make a pick on this one here, I'm much more attracted to that 7.4K price tag than I am to someone at 8.8K who was content to score 84 in his last win, score 83 against Johns there. He doesn't necessarily have the highest DraftKings upside on a card as packed as this one here with so many studs. 8.8K, it's hard to get Castaneda unless it is for those contrarian reasons. But with that being said, another fun fight, looking forward to it. Gonna pick the underdog here though in Kang. We keep it rolling with the 19-6 Jared Gordon versus the 12-1 Mark O. Madsen. A very, very fun matchup here. One where we do have the former Olympian in Mark Madsen versus just the junkyard dog here in Jared Gordon, someone who has shown a good ability to go out there and contend, some very good hand speed. Everyone thinks he won that fight against Paddy Pimblett. He's looking to get it back here. Kind of buried on the prelims. And you know what? Mark Madsen hasn't looked the best recently, but I do think this is a very interesting matchup, one that could be pretty compelling if it comes down to certain scrambles. It really just depends on what version of Mark Madsen we get here. Because Mark Madsen, when he first came into the UFC here, was someone who would push a pace, who would go out there and shoot takedowns. Landed 8 against Hubbard, showed some good ability to do so in the regional scene, but recently has fallen in love with those hands and really hasn't always used it. Didn't land a takedown against Guida. Only got 3 there against Pichel, someone who was taken down very, very easily. He is someone who has shown the ability to, yes, use his hands, which I think are improving, but his wrestling has kind of left him, which is the best asset of his game, and something that I think he's going to need here to win against Jared Gordon. So when it comes down to the striking, I do think Jared Gordon is the far superior technical striker. I like his hand speed. I like his ability to mix it up with the clinch exchanges as well. I like his ability to win optics from that regard. You add in the fact that he's pretty physically imposing, has decent power behind his shots as well, and decent volume and cardio to keep it up for all 15 minutes, and Gordon is going to be a threat out there for someone with the style of Madsen. That's kind of why I'm thinking if Madsen wants to win this fight, he has to get back to that Madsen of old who would shoot takedowns, who would look to win minutes in that regard, because I don't think he's going to have the same success on the feet winning the striking exchange against Gordon. So when it comes down to making a pick on this one, 50-50 gun to my head, I think I have to go with Jared Gordon, just because I think he has the better overall style. We've seen Madsen tire. We've seen Madsen refuse to use his grappling, and if that's the case, a 15-minute kickboxing affair, Jared Gordon should get this all day with his hand speed, with his technicality, and his ability to mix it up. But if Marco Madsen comes in here and decides to wrestle and utilize that game plan, or even throw heavy shots, because I think the biggest red flag of Jared Gordon is that durability, he is live. And I do think that Madsen is a very, very live underdog, making this line maybe a bit wide once again. So for that regard, in a close fight, give me Jared Gordon. I do think he's able to get it. I do think he's also able to take over as Madsen wears down the stretch. But DraftKings-wise, Madsen is a very intriguing play. All right, if he wants to contend in this matchup, it's going to require a ton of either finish upside or grappling upside, something that could score very well. He scored 105 against Bellawardo, 91 against Hubbard, and he has the ability to go out there and land 8 takedowns. Shall he decide to go that route? The problem is his ceiling is relatively capped at that, because if he doesn't shoot takedowns, we saw him go out there and only put up 71 points against Guida in a striking affair. So I think he is someone who is a very, very high upside contrarian underdog this week, who does have the opportunity to go out there and break the slate on some lineups, but isn't the most trustworthy to do so. The pick of the day is Jared Gordon, who should use his pace down the stretch to try to go out there and break Madsen. If he does utilize that game plan, we saw him score 100 against Santos, 120 against Fishgold, 111 against Moret. His style could bode very well, and I do think if Madsen is getting older and decides to strike for this long period of time, Gordon could be live to do well at 8.9K. That being said, with so many studs, so many big people I want to pay up to get this week, he's not someone I'm really getting to the most, and there are better matchups to target. Should be a fun one. I think the line's wide, but Gordon should get it done at the end of the day. Next up, we have the 9-1 Nazim Sadykhov versus the 7-3 Slaviklaus Borshchev, and this is a pretty simple matchup right here. Slaviklaus Borshchev is a phenomenal striker. Great ability to mix it up to the body, make reads as the fight goes on, has a ton of power and shots in doing so, but would do a lot better if this were just striking bouts. He is not the best grappler, can be taken down at will. Diakashi showed that, Davis showed that he can be taken down by a lot of these fighters down here, and it now comes down to, will his opponents take him down? Because I do think he beats a lot of the division on the feet. Very technical, very powerful. He makes these raids, and he looks very, very good doing so, just like he did with a second-round knockout over Mahashata. So then the question comes down to, will Nazim Sadykhov wrestle? Because we saw Sadykhov go out there and get outpointed on the feet by Evan Elder, something that Borshchev would love to replicate and really show him how it's done. And I do think that this fight stays on the feet 15 minutes. Although Sadykhov has been tough, I do think Borshchev probably gets him out of there, because Sadykhov looked hittable. He didn't look perfect out there, and Borshchev is really just a level above on the feet. But when it comes to the ground game, to the overall skill set that I think Sadykhov has, I think Sadykhov is able to take him down. I think he has the ground game to go out there and finish Borshchev. And I think it may only need 1 or 2 takedowns, considering how good that ground game is and how weak Borshchev looks off his back. Now, yes, Sadykhov hasn't really historically shot takedowns, but I do think in this matchup here it would benefit him well. I think he's with the proper camp here to tell him, to train him to go out there and get takedowns, because I do think that is his best path to victory. Now, it is no guarantee that he follows that path to victory, and for that reason, he is a bit concerning to back. Now, the money comes in on Borshchev, and Sadykhov's now around the -130, -135 range. He's someone who I'm interested in, because although Borshchev, like I said, is probably the better striker, the discrepancy in the ground game is much larger than the discrepancy on the feet. So I like Sadykhov this week. This is a very, very pivotal matchup on DraftKings. 8.5K, Sadykhov has that ground game path to victory, go out there and score very well. With the amount of takedowns that Borshchev is giving up and allowing to his opponents, I do think that Sadykhov at 8.5K has a very, very high ceiling. Flip side of things, if you are looking for underdogs, and like I said, there's a lot of fights we have left to cover. Borjas has a high-paced striking approach in the feet with so much power that could lead towards another finish. Scored 134 against Malashate in a second-round finish there. His power is unparalleled. His ability to make reads on the stretch is very good as well. If you think Sadykhov is not going to wrestle, Borshchev is a great underdog play for you at 7.7. Fun matchup. Like I said, pick is going to be Sadykhov because he has such a clear path to victory. Let's just hope he utilizes it. Next up, the 9-1 top of the Ricci versus the 11-3 Lopes Godinez. The fight of the night that everyone's been waiting for. Two of my girls, two people who I've backed a lot of the time, including especially Lopes Godinez, someone who I've backed at almost every bout, for better or for worse, versus top of the Ricci. Someone who actually, let me just make sure here, someone who I've backed the last 4 times, as she is on a 4-fight winning streak. I love both these girls. I'm sad to see them go up against each other, but I'm not here to pick favorites. I'm here to tell you who I think is going to win the fight. And as you guys know, I'm completely content to go out there and pick all favorites. I'm completely content to be honest with you guys because that is how I want to break it down. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to give you guys the proper breakdowns. And for this one right here, I got to side with the Canadian girl here, Lopes Godinez. Now, there's a lot of things to say about this, right? You have two good-looking girls who have won a lot of people some money. It is going to be one that's going to have people on both sides. And yes, I do think Tabitha Ricci is live to get some success from top positions if she's able to get it there. She has shown that she is still improving her game. But when it comes to how I see this fight playing out, I do think Lopes has her covered in a lot of these areas. And I think that Tabitha Ricci's game plan has been predicated on takedown success and controlling for top position. Something that you can do against a Polyana Vienna, against a Oliveira, against a Penne. But when you're facing someone who is as strong of a wrestler as Lopes is, who has looked so good on the mat in those wrestling exchanges, it's going to be really tough for her to take her down. And sure, Ricci may be the better overall jiu-jitsu girl, but if you're not strong enough to go out there and take down Godinez or scramble the top position or control her the same way you control other people, I can't pick you to win this fight against someone who is as good of a wrestler and as strong as Godinez. Add in the fact that I think in the striking exchanges, Lopes is going to be the better fighter, training with Grasso, having the longer punches, showing that she has had an ability to go out there and improve her striking game. I think Godinez covers a lot of these bases here, and she is someone who I'm looking to back. Now, money's coming in on Godinez, minus 170, probably around right, honestly. Don't know if I want to lay too much chalk, especially on someone in Godinez who has dropped the ball before, but this is one where I do think she has a lot of these bases covered and she should win this fight. On DraftKings, I'm tentative to play her, though. Last time she went out there and absolutely steamrolled Reed and scored 128. But that was involving a lot of wrestling. 5 takedowns, even a knockdown sprinkled in. Does she want to go out there and grapple with Ricci, even though she has such a, I want to say, prominent striking advantage here? That's what I'm scared for. And in these striking advantages, she scored 88 against Ducote, 66 against Calvillo. When she's not wrestling all the time, her scores are kind of limited. And with such a path to victory on the feet, I don't want to be relying on her to grapple here to score very well. There may be some better options here. Flip side of things, if I'm saying that Ricci's path to victory is going to be to grapple and maybe get a meme submission from that regard, scored 122 submitting Penne. That is a very, very good path to victory. I don't think she reaches it too often, but is a very, very high ceiling if she's able to do so. Pick is Godinez. I'm siding with her. Maybe not the best DraftKings equity, though. We keep her moving with the 18-1 Mateus Rebecki versus the 12-3 Roosevelt Roberts. A short notice replacement here for Roberts, getting his return to the UFC after, a brief stint. The Ultimate Fighter. Man, this guy has some good experience, but he's facing a bit of a tank in front of him, Rebecki. Now, I taped this fight last, and first thing you're going to notice is that huge height and reach discrepancy for Roberts. Very, very big frame this division, and very different build, right? He's very tall, stocky, whereas Rebecki's just this fire hydrant, someone that brings a lot of power, and that kind of replicates his style as well. Is going to go forward, is going to be kind of a bull in a china shop out there, throw the fight any intention, but also look for takedowns, where he's very dominant for top position, very good ground game as well, and everything he does is very explosive. His cardio may be a problem down the stretch. We haven't really seen it tested too often. I do know Roberts does have good cardio, but from everything we've seen so far, Rebecki is super, super powerful and is a threat at any time to finish the fight. We've seen Roberts taken down. We've seen Roberts hit and knocked out. We've seen Roberts struggling with a lot of these things, and I do think that on short notice here, against someone as powerful as Rebecki, it's only right to have Rebecki as the favorite. Yes, Roberts is going to have the height and reach, maybe able to pitter-patter from the outside, but with the leg kicks, with the wrestling game, with the approach that Rebecki brings, he is someone who I want to back in this spot here, and he is someone who I think the UFC is looking to promote. He is someone who I think wins this fight at a decently high clip. Now, there's no DraftKings salary, but I do think he is someone I want to look to invest in. If he slides right in 9.3K, I might have to play him here, right? Against someone who is coming on short notice, who has been knocked out before. I do think Rebecki has the power, the style, the wrestling to go out there and score very well in a win. He's been nothing but productive so far in the UFC, and until a solid counter grappler can go out there and look to tire him out, I think he's able to continue to roll here. I think the style bodes well for Rebecki to beat Roberts here, but one where I might have to go and do some more research, considering this is one where I'd take pretty quickly. Pick is tentatively going to be Rebecki, but make sure to check me out on Twitter at GamblesGordo to see my final read at the end of the week. And then the prelim headliner, the 10-1 Steve Erceg versus the 13-3 Alessandro Costa. And this is a very, very fun fight. You might not recognize these names at flyweight to be headlining the prelims, but this is really a fun matchup and two prospects who I think have a decent future in front of them. Start off with Costa, right? He came in against Albazi, got steamrolled, but was able to get a favorable matchup against Flick. In that match against Flick, he showed very, very good hand speed, a good ability to mix it up on the ground as well. Very stocky, and I think has a very good, well-rounded skill set. I think he has probably the better hand speed in this matchup, but is someone who I think lacks maybe some defense, lacks maybe some minute winning ability I'd like to see against some people who are able to throw more volume. Really lacks level of competition. Steve Erceg checks a lot of these boxes too. His level of competition is not good either, but he came in and got a win over Dvorak. Shown that he is a dog, and when he's out there and he maybe might not be as technical as Costa on the feet, throws with fight-ending intention. Very powerful guy up there. Very, very good scramble game and back-taking and very good ground game as well. But someone who looks to finish these fights at all the time. 70% finish rate, 6 wins coming by submission. Add in the fact he's going to have a 4-inch height advantage here, being the larger fighter of the two. He is the stat I'm going to have to side with here. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight by any means, though. I think Costa has a very good hand speed, could have the ability to make it frustrating for Erceg. But when it comes to picking a winner, a guy who I think's win more optics, has more paths to victory, get it done, as well as having that in and out movement with the larger size, I do think Erceg is the rightful favorite here, and he is someone I'm looking to back. He is getting to be a larger favorite, but I do think he is someone who's a fun fighter and someone who I think has finishing potential here to be a fun fighter at 8.6K on DraftKings. With such good aggression and potential submission game, as well as a ton of power on the feet as well, he is someone who I think brings a fun style and who is someone I'm looking to back. Now, with that being said, these are both guys who are relatively untested at UFC level, so maybe I'm not saying with as most conviction, and considering there are the Sadykhovs, Pereiras, Aspinalls around Erceg, it is maybe harder to get to him, but I do think he's a fun fighter to go out there and look to see how you can implement him to your lineup, and I do think he wins this fight here. Just give me Erceg, very fun matchup. I don't think Costa is a pushover by any means, but at the end of the day, Astro Boy is who I'm going with. On the main card, we have the 18-4 Pat Sabatini versus the 22-6 Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes has been on a roll, taking the world by storm. Saw him in Nashville, put on a show, decimating my boy Gavin Tucker there, Canadian legend. So is someone with a lot of hype behind him. I don't think he's perfect by any means, but has really shown that he is a true threat. If you cannot suppress him and neutralize him, he will go after you for 15 minutes with ground attacks, power on the feet, and just a constant ability to look to get you out of the fight. And I think really skipping ahead to my pick on this one here is if you have a ability to break down the stretch, Lopes will look to break you. He'll put you in a ton of submission positions. He'll test your cardio. He'll make you work, and he'll test your chin and ability to take strikes on the feet. Considering how durable and how good of cardio Lopes has, he will throw everything he has at you for 15 minutes. And I do think that's really a problem here in Sabatini, a guy who we've seen finish, and a guy who we've seen slow down in the third round. Those are all things who do not bode well when you are facing someone as dangerous as Diego Lopes. Now, let's get the elephant out of the way. Sabatini, terrific grappler, and we've seen Diego Lopes lose fights by being stuck on bottom position. I do think there's a world where Sabatini goes out there, takes down Lopes, and controls him for 15 minutes. But it's not going to be easy, and you're going to have a constant threat coming towards you. And when I'm looking to pick a winner on this side, I don't want to be hoping for Sabatini to neutralize Lopes, especially considering he can make a mistake at any time and have Lopes capitalize on it considering how dangerous he is. But instead, I want to cheer for the guy who's going to make you work, who's going to have the ability to mix it up from bottom position, who be the more trustworthy striker on the feet as well, and when it comes to durability. And I do think Lopes has the ability to win this fight more than the line entails. So yes, again, Sabatini is the path to victory to control him on the mat and win from that regard. Not enough to make him to a favorite. I think Lopes throws a bunch of things at him from bottom position, on the feet with the power, and I do think that he eventually breaks Sabatini with so much coming his way, kicking off the main card with the bang. For that reason, on DraftKings, one of my favorite plays is going to be Lopes at 7.9K. He went out there, scored 90 points flat. No strikes, no takedowns, just a finish win against Tucker. I do think this one's going to be a bit harder than the last one, but also one where he's able to put up more points in the progress. We've seen Damon Jackson finish Sabatini. We saw Emmers put Sabatini in a rough spot as well. We saw Connolly tire him out as well. There are people who have put up good scores going up against him here, and I do think the path to victory for Lopes scores very well. Flip side, I think, speaking of path to victory, Sabatini's path to victory is controlling him for 15 minutes. Something that won't be the prettiest thing to watch, but when he does do that, scores very well. Scored 105 against Lutz, 106 against Laramie, 114 against Almeida, where he looked very dominant, strong for top position. The path to victory for him scores very well. And like I said, it is a realistic possibility, but not one who I think is going to come without any hard work going his way. He's going to have an absolute beast underneath of him. Should be a fun matchup, and I do think Lopes prevails to break him. Either way, the winner should score very well. Fun matchup. And then the fight we've really all been waiting for. 11-3-1, Matt Frevola. 12-1, God of War, Benoit Saint-Denis. Two killers, right? Two guys who will throw everything at you. Two guys who are entertainers and who will bring the show for you guys at Madison Square Garden. What a fun matchup. Frevola, a guy who was typically a wrestler, who has a very good wrestling game, very good cardio base, has turned into a striker, right? 3 wins in a row by knockout, and very impressive in doing so. And he's gone out there, got into brawls, and he has succeeded. A ton of power in his hands. Has the threat of the takedown as well, so he's able to connect in these shots and put people's lights out that usually don't get knocked out. Drew Dober got absolutely starched. We don't usually see that often. Benoit Saint-Denis as well has been on a tear. Has a cardio base and a grappling base that just breaks people. Takes you down, looks to progress to some good positions, and is so strong, has such good cardio, will look to break you as well. And I do think that this is a very, very fun clash of styles. The problem I have here is, as much as I love Frevola, and I've backed him as an underdog a lot of time, and I do think if you want an underdog on DraftKings, he is very, very live because he has a ton of fight-ending power anytime, and he needs someone into me who can be hit. We've seen durability concerns from Frevola. We've seen him be hit, we've seen him be knocked out, and we've seen him be out-grappled. We've seen him be out-willed. And we've never seen that from Benoit Saint-Denis, right? He got battered by Zaleski dos Santos. That fight should have been stopped, but he kept going. Showed that he was still in that fight. That was up a weight class too. And now he has, ever since, shown a great ability to get to position first. Have a good cardio base. Be that French special forces and look to never lose again. Although he lacks defense, he is durable. He has a ton of fight-ending in positions in his own right and has the ability to look to break his opponents, something that I've seen Frevola be broken before. So for that regard, although it is a very, very close fight, one that I'm excited to watch, and I do think it could come down to the wire, I am going to side with Benoit Saint-Denis. I do think he is the more dangerous guy, and I do think he is someone who I can trust more to go out there, execute his game plan, and win this matchup. With that being said, I don't think that Frevola should be plus 200 against anybody, right? Considering he does have that one-shot knockout power, how he's a good wrestler in his own right and does have good cardio. It's that durability concern. So maybe I'll look for inside the distance Benoit Saint-Denis. Either way, this is going to be an absolute war for as long as it lasts, and for that reason, a phenomenal fight target on DraftKings. 9.1K, Benoit Saint-Denis in his last 3 wins has scored 150, 115, 135. Phenomenal scores, better than anybody else in this entire slate. Has been an absolute force. He is someone I want to look to target. I do think he can break Frevola and score very well in the process. Flip side of things, 7.1K, when Frevola's won, he scored 115, 160 against Valdez, and 104 against Azatar. He is also extremely dangerous and has a path to victory to score very, very well. Fun matchup. Maybe my favorite one on the card, but I am going to have to slightly pick the Frenchman here. Give me the God of War. Super fun fight. Next up, the 24-12 Jessica Andrade versus the 13-3 Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to try to keep this one shorter, right? I think we have 2 fighters going in opposite trajectories here. Jessica Andrade kind of on the decline. Yes, a threat, but someone who has done it all, right? And hasn't really seemed to be in the right headspace recently. Submitted second most times in WMMA history. Submitted all the time. Taking fights against high level of competition on short notice. Is her heart in the right place? I don't know. Whereas we've seen someone, Mackenzie Dern, who was kind of at the pinnacle, right? She had a world best performance where Jessica Andrade maybe had her worst performances yet. And that's kind of why the line is reflecting this, right? At their peaks, I think Jessica Andrade would be a favorite here. Someone who is as powerful as she is, has such a good base, is so stocky to go out there and defend submissions and takedowns. But considering she has given up these positions, can be submitted before, doesn't know if her heart's in the right place, and someone in Dern who's drilling everything, including those takedowns, improving her striking, and is, as always, an amazing threat to finish on the mat, I get why Dern's a favorite here, and I'm going to have to pick her as well. She has shown that she's really looking to make these improvements, and although Jessica Andrade's heart doesn't seem to be in it, even at her best, she was dominating the mat before. And I do think Dern, if it does get to the mat, could finish her at any point in time. Dern is maybe more dangerous than anyone she's fought so far. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but her jiu-jitsu game is no joke. Very dangerous, and I do think that a finish can materialize here. Now, does it materialize enough to live up to that 9K price tag? Maybe, right? We've talked about a lot of good scores, but in Dern's finishes win, she scored 107, 103, 92, 110. Those are phenomenal scores, as well as plenty of 153 in a 5-rounder against Hill. Of course, she's not going to replicate that here, but her ceiling is super high. Her takedowns are improving, and I do think if she gets one here, her finish upside is there for sure. She is someone at 9K who I do think has finish upside, takedown upside, and a very, very high ceiling compared to the Joshua Van, Jamal Emmers, Jared Gordons, and Castanedas of the world. She is someone who I'm looking to target. I do like her this week. Flip side of things, Andrade, if her heart's in the right place, could put up a fight, trying to lift up those takedowns and winning on the feet. Considering the point where she is at her career, we've seen how durable Dern is. I don't think Dern's getting knocked out here, as well as I don't think Andrade's going to take her down, making for a very, very limited ceiling on the Andrade side of things. Not someone getting too often, more so on the Dern side. I do think she gets it done. Give me Mackenzie Dern. And as we get to the co-main event, you guys can probably tell I'm losing my voice doing this breakdown. Maybe I'm that excited for it. Don't know if I have to say too much about this one. We have the 18-1 Sergey Pavlovich, 13-3 Tom Aspinall. This fight comes down to, can Sergey Pavlovich land the fight-ending blow? Because this man is absolutely terrifying. Maybe more power than we've seen from almost anybody in this division. He has the ability to put anyone's lights out and has been on an absolute tear since coming to the UFC. Every single one of his bouts ending by first-round KO. Now, all of them ending by first-round KO, including his one loss. And yes, a very long time ago against Overeem. But we seem to have a pretty clear binary matchup here, right? Sergey Pavlovich is going to look to take your head off in the first 5 minutes. And although he is more powerful, I don't think he's better technically than Aspinall. Aspinall has better in and out movement, better technicality on the feet, and is someone whose ground game is superb. And if he's able to get to those hips and take down Pavlovich, we've seen Pavlovich be a fish out of the water off his back, and I do think Aspinall can take advantage of that. If Pavlovich lands in the first 2 minutes, no one will be surprised. He's extremely powerful and has the ability to knock out anybody very early on, but the guy who has the better in and out movement, who has better minute winning, even though I don't think it matters in this matchup, but someone who has very, very well timed takedowns and someone who could finish this fight if it gets to the mat even once is going to be Tom Aspinall. And for that reason, I do believe it's a true 50-50 fight. However, in those matchups, I kind of side with the grappler, someone who has the ability to contend in the feet, but just has this clear path to victory on the mat. So I am going to side with Tom Aspinall here. Super fun matchup and super one that is very, very pivotal to DraftKings, but also super dangerous, right? Pavlovich kind of feels like the don't bet against Derek Lewis type of guy, right? Because he is so dangerous to finish this fight at any time. But for this reason, I want ownership of both sides on DraftKings. There's no surprise there. 8K, Pavlovich has finished all of his fights by first round knockout, scoring 114, 144, 131, 109, 108, 108. Incredible scoring. I do think his win looks a lot like an early finish here against Aspinall. However, Aspinall has also done very, very well. Scored 105 against Tybura, 116 against Volkov in a submission win, which I kind of think is a path to victory here. 116 against Bivak, 129 against Collier. I do think the winner of this fight ends up in the optimal lineup. The question is, who do you think wins, right? I can't go out there and tell you with much conviction that my side's going to win because either one of them is dangerous to finish the fight their own way. Power puncher and Pavlov early, takedown threat of Aspinall if he's able to survive the early couple of strikes thrown his way. Who knows? Slightly sliding towards Aspinall because more paths get it done, but incredible matchup. And then the main event, the 8-2 Alex Pereira taking on the 29-3-1 Jiri Prochazka, vacant light heavyweight championship. Super fun matchup. Pereira making his move up to light heavyweight. Second bout, beat Jan Blachowicz in elevation, very close one. I backed him in that one. And the question is, do I back him here? We have a very interesting matchup. We have the technical superstar with a ton of power, great technicality kickboxer here in Alex Pereira, versus the madman in Prochazka, who will go outside, be a samurai, cut down trees, who has an antenna for hair, who will just do anything to go out there and take your head off. Two different approaches, two same mentalities. Win the fight, knock your head off. Two different ways of doing so. And I think that it really comes down to who breaks, right? Is it the chin of Jiri or is it the will and cardio of Pereira? And that's kind of where I'm sitting for this matchup, right? I do think that when it comes down to a 25-minute kickboxing affair, Pereira wins. There's no doubt about that. But the style, the pace, the pressure, the volume that Prochazka brings, throwing from different angles, being as powerful as he is, trying to break your spirit, is something that Pereira's never seen before. Something that broke Glover at the end of it, and something that is dangerous here. Now, the ground game is something I want to touch on real quick. Yes, Jiri should have that edge on paper. I don't know how often it gets utilized. I don't want to factor that in too much. I'm more worried about the striking, right? Because Alex Pereira looked tired. Yes, that last matchup wasn't good, but that was at elevation. And I do think here he has an ability to go out there and have some early success. He's gotten a fifth round knockout before, but never with the fighter that has brought as much of a pace as Jiri does here. It is going to be extremely dangerous. Now, how much does the surgery and layoff affect Jiri? That's another big question here, but I do think that if Jiri gets in his role, where he's able to get in the face of Pereira and crowd him with a ton of strikes, spinning elbows, whatever he does, that could look to break the will of Pereira. Now, that's a big if. I think I'm going to have to pick Alex Pereira here, just because the defense of Jiri has been so lacking, and he has been rocked so many times. Glover rocked him. Reyes flash knockout. He absorbs every single punch with his face, and against someone as powerful as Alex Pereira, that's not what you want to do. Pereira has touch of death power, such good ability to make reads. He'll knock anyone's lights out, and I do think he has the ability to knock out Prochazka's lights. The problem I have here, though, is if he's not able to do that early, I think Jiri takes down the stretch. I think he drowns them in volume, in insanity that Jiri brings, making it for another very, very close matchup. Slightly leaning towards Alex, I do think he does have that one-shot power, and he's able to win the early technical exchanges, but you never know. Yuri is absolutely crazy and insane, so it'll be interesting to see from that regard. But the pick is going to be Alex Pereira. However, another fight you almost need on DraftKings, right? Considering the pace Jiri brings and the power Pereira has, the winner should score very, very well. 8.4K Pereira is where I'm leaning. I do think he has round one finish potential and is going to be forced to throw a ton of volume because the style of Jiri should be fun. Flip side, I think Jiri is one of the best DraftKings scorers we've seen. 123 against Teixeira, 120 against Reyes. His style scores very, very well. For that reason, I want this fight on DraftKings. However, I will be leaning with Alex Pereira. But with that, guys, longer video. Hope you guys stayed with me. Let's quickly give you my quick picks. Go with Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall, Mackenzie Dern, Benoit Saint-Denis, Diego Lopes, Steve Erceg, Mateus Rebecki, Lupita Godinez, Nazim Sadykhov, Jared Gordon, Kang, Joshua Van, and Jamal Emmers. On DraftKings, the two fights that matter the most are going to be those two main and co-main. Jiri versus Pereira, Aspinall versus Pavlovich. Right after that, though, Frevola, Benoit Saint-Denis is important, and so is Lopes Sabatini. Those are 4 fights I'm really targeting. Aside from that, I think that Dern is a great option up top as well. Rebecki as soon as the salary comes in. And Sadykhov is a very, very good option to get at 8.5K. Underdog-wise, I like Kang. I think Madsen is a very high ceiling, so he'll execute it. I already talked about how much I like Lopes. And Frevola is that GBP play if you're willing to take the shot against someone as dangerous as Benoit Saint-Denis. Reignmakers-wise, highest ceiling, I think we got to go with Benoit Saint-Denis, Mackenzie Dern, and then the winner of the main and co-main event. That's only 4, so as well as the winner of the Borshchev-Sadykhov fight. So repeating that Reignmakers-wise, the winner of Sadykhov-Borshchev, winner of Pereira-Prochazka, winner of Aspinall-Pavlovich. Those are 3 just extremely high scores, close fights. I've already given you my input, but the winner of those 3, as well as Dern and Benoit Saint-Denis up top. Betting-wise, nothing locked in yet, but be sure to check me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. Even leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to answer anything you guys have there and tell you who I've got locked in so far. I'll also be putting out a best bets video later in the week. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. I wish everyone the best of luck on all your DraftKings and betting endeavors, guys. Let's make some money.